So several months ago I decided I would begin video recording my enjoyment of this hobby, the hobby of historical and conflict gaming. So all these videos together, they'll cover hex and counter, war games, miniature war games, and even possibly computer war games. So this is another installment. Laid out here is the 11 inches by 17 inch map for Salla 1941. A fight to the finish. So this is the setup. Um, the game comes with a one sheet of designer notes. So I think I'll start there and then move on to some quick rules reviews. Yeah, and then we'll take a look at what's laid out here. So the solid designer notes. Thanks to the random order formation activation, every game of Salla plays differently. So like Kastenga, each division or divisional unit, well in this case they're divisions. Each division has a formation chit with its name on it, and at the start of each turn, all those formation chits go in the cup, and they're drawn randomly. For a hard and fixed formation activation segment. So all formation activity happens within a formation segment, which is the order of which is randomized by the draw of chits from the cup. All terrain effects are cumulative, so attack over a river. Let's see. Here is a. Okay, where's an example? Here we go. So Salla, the village of Salla here, and then we have the river here, the Kuola River right here. This is our north-seeking arrow, so the top of the map is the north side. Attack over a river and into the woods. Oh. All right, never mind. All right, so here is a woods hex adjacent to the same river I just mentioned. So an attack from this hex across the river into the woods hex would be against a quadrupled defender. Same goes for combat bonuses. If you can manage to attack with 3 complete regiments and infantry armor combined arms, you can have as many as 4 column shifts, which is pretty much a drastic difference considering, again, like Kastenga, there are only 6 columns on the CRT, so a 4 column shift would be significant. You have as many unless you're attacking the last enemy units on the map, you'd be buying yourself a lot of trouble though. So what they're referring to is that the regiments on the board, for example, the 17th Regiment here, the Finnish 17th Regiment. We have the 3rd and 1st Battalions in this hex, and we have the 2nd Battalion from the same regiment in the hex just to the west. So if all three of these battalions were attacking together, an enemy unit. Now it doesn't apply here because actually this lake hex would not make that possible, but discounting the lake here, if all 3 regiments or all 3 battalions of the 17th Regiment attack the same enemy, that's called regimental integrity, and you get a column shift. Now this is as I recall, it's not easy to get regimental integrity, plain and simple. It's not an easy bonus to get. To keep those regiments together, get them in the attack all together, is certainly doable, but it doesn't happen turn after turn after turn just because of the vagaries of combat and combat results. But there is regimental integrity, and then there is the infantry armor combined arms bonus identical to Kastenga. A zone of control does not cross a lake hex side, but command range via radio waves and artillery fire can. That makes the villages of Kairala. Kairala is almost right here, dead center in the map, right here. This is the village of Kairala. It is currently in the Soviet hands. That's why I have a little Soviet marker here. Hammer and sickle marker for showing Kairala in Soviet hands. And Mykola is right here. Mykola is right here. It is also under Soviet control. What's significant about Mykola is that this village is at a little land bridge here. There's a little land bridge here between this long skinny lake and this long skinny lake. There's a little land bridge there, but the land bridge goes, it has forest on the west side and the village of Mykola on the east side. So according to the designer notes, that makes Kairala and Mykola key terrain in this scenario. I'll pause here and say that the game, Salla 1941, comes with two scenarios. I'm actually playing the second scenario now. The first scenario, as I recall, is basically the fight up here at the border. Okay, so the axis advancing this way east. So the first scenario is the fight that starts at the border. And now this is the second scenario where the Soviets have been pushed back here, obviously, as you can see. And behind the Soviets is Alakurty, the city of Alakurty here, currently in Soviet hands. Again, Salla is up here by the border. Salla is a crossroads town right to the east of the border. Okay, so in this scenario, designer note says these two villages are significant. Key terrain. The first 5 hex, note that the 5 hex command range goes through anything. I mentioned this before with Kostenga, that 5 hex range for all your headquarters. Here's a Soviet headquarters, the 1st Tank Division. Here's the 100 and... got these backwards. Alright, this is the 122nd Rifle Division headquarters right here, which basically, these are their forces here. And this is the 104th Rifle Division here. And these are the 104th units right here. So that 5 hex command range goes through anything. Enemy units, zones of controls, lakes, rivers, whatever. It's not enough to isolate a headquarters, you have to kill it. That goes both ways. Protect your headquarters. Few units will survive very long after their headquarters is destroyed. And we will see that, we will see the effects of a destroyed headquarters if we get it, and it is pretty significant. Basically, the division starts wasting away, I guess is one way to put it. A unit can always move 1 hex in a movement phase that allows it to move at all. The Finnish Light Infantry Battalion, which I chose to put the Finnish Light Infantry Battalion. These are actually no different than the Light Infantry Battalions in Kostenga. So I chose to put the Finnish Light Infantry Battalion way here, down here on the southern flank, to maybe take advantage of all this, of moving quickly through all this forest down here. We'll see how that works. So the Finnish Light Infantry Battalion is the only non-motorized unit that can move during the armored movement phase. Salla, I think, if I remember correctly, Salla came out a couple years before Kostenga. So Kostenga I look at as a slight, not slight, I look at Kostenga as a refinement of Salla. So just of note, here in Salla they call it an armored movement phase. They call it an armored movement phase. And if you'll remember in Kostenga, I think it was a mechanized movement phase, which I guess is slightly more correct, technically more correct. So yeah, armored movement phase here is, and I'm trying to remember, yeah, I think in effect it's identical to the mechanized movement phase in Kostenga. All right, some specifics for the Axis side. Again, there's Axis forces here. The SS Nord Division, the black units in the center here, west of and facing Kairala, the village of Kairala. The SS Nord Division is a brittle unit. You'll notice that its headquarters is not motorized. Its headquarters right here. This is the headquarters right here that we're talking about. Let's see if it'll focus. That is the SS Nord Division headquarters. There we go. That's the SS Nord headquarters division. It is not motorized. You will not be performing any Arctic blitzkrieg maneuvers here, the designer notes say. In either scenario, so again, this is the second of two scenarios, your first and perhaps most important decision will be how to assign the independent units to divisions, and that is correct. I actually want to talk about that in this video. The extra strength can make the 169th. Alright, so here's the 169th up here. 169th Infantry Division are these field gray units up here. Down here, the green writing on gray is the Finnish 6th Division. So you have the Finnish 6th Division, SS Nord Division, which is really drastically under strength, and then the German Army 169th Infantry Division up here. The extra strength can make the 169th a powerful offensive tool, but you got to prop up the SS. You can divide the units up, of course, but just how much strength to send to each division will be a major choice. Yeah, we will talk. Well, I'll just pause here and talk about it, okay? So over here on my post-it, I went ahead and I recorded my independent unit assignments. When I played Salla before, I didn't bother to do this. I just kind of tried to remember. This time playing through, I think it's going to be very important to properly record and stick to the unit assignments. So the bottom line here with this list is that you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 battalions that you can assign to either the 169th Infantry, 169th German Infantry, or the 6th Finnish Infantry Divisions. This is a lot. I mean, this is basically close to a division's worth of assets that you need to assign to one of the two divisions. You can assign in any way. There are no limitations on all to one division or all of one type to one division. It's 8 units that you can assign in any way you want to the 169th or the 6th. You can't assign them to the SS Nord Division, however. And of these, you have some significant units. You have a machine gun battalion, you have 2 armor battalions, you have 3 infantry battalions. So in effect, you have an entire extra infantry regiment that you can assign to one or the other division. And you have, well, I would say assign those together so that you have the possibility of getting regimental integrity. But you could split up those battalions too if you wanted to. And then we have 2 artillery battalions. And of those artillery battalions, I'll even also point out that, as a matter of fact, I'll grab them. These, well, I guess one is an average artillery battalion, but one of them, this one, is has a range of 8, which makes it a pretty significant artillery battalion. Right there is a range of 8, and so that's a pretty significant one. Another significant asset to assign. So what did I basically think of doing? The Axis main effort is going to be the 169th. It's funny that I decided that before reading these designer notes. But the 169th is going to be the main effort here in the north. There'll be a supporting effort by the 6th Finnish Division, and of course the, well, I should say, first support effort by the 6th Finnish Division, and a secondary support mission for the SS Nord. So the 4th Machine Gun Battalion I put right here to bolster this initial drive here. Okay, so the 40th Armored I put right here put the armor back here on the road here, the road between Salla and the north map edge. So this road right here. I put the 40th Armored Division back here, ready to move up and exploit whatever openings are created. I went ahead and put the 37th, I assigned the 37th down here to the Finnish battalion, only because if the Finns or even the SS are actually able to bust through to the east side of the lakes here, there's some open terrain here, so that if they can bust through, the 37th Armored Battalion right here, can hopefully exploit the open terrain there. I put the entire, I added the entire 324th Regiment, those 3 infantry battalions I mentioned. I added them back here, right here, so they're right here. They are ready to be a basically follow and support mission to whatever breakthroughs the 169th can manage up here, either this direction or this direction. This would be most desirable, but this would be also desirable, well, I should say secondarily desirable if to break through here, because at least we'll hump it across the forest here and get back to the rear area right here and threaten Alakurti here. And the artillery I split. So one of the artillery assets is down here with the 6th. This is the normal artillery battalion I gave to the 6th, and I added that long-range artillery that we just looked at to the 169th, my main effort. So those were my assignments of those assets, and that's kind of it. That's what I did, and that's an example of what the designer notes are talking about in suggesting that an important consideration in setup is how you assign all those assets that are able to. Now, for game purposes, if I remember correctly, these are hard assignments. So for the rest of the game, for the rest of the scenario, all these battalions are, for all rules mechanics purposes, assigned and part of their divisions that I've assigned them to. I don't think there's any reassignment during the during play. As a matter of fact, just real quick, independent units has a separate rule section 8.2. At the beginning of the game, the player announces which division he wishes these units to accompany. For the remainder of the game, the independent units function as though they belong to the formation to which they are attached. Yeah, so... Okay, independent units attached to the SS Nord division are under the same command restrictions outlined above. However, should the SS Nord headquarters be eliminated, any independent units under its command may, on the next turn, be transferred to the Axis formation, which has a unit closest to the independent unit. Units of the SS Nord division, even if stacked with independent units, may not move or attack. Okay. Okay. So basically, it is the hard assignment I mentioned before, the only exception being that if units are attached to the SS Nord, which actually they're not in this scenario, there is a provision to transfer them out if the SS Nord headquarters is eliminated. Okay, so that's an exception, but the standard rule is before the start of the scenario and the game, assign your independent units and you go from there. There's a paragraph on scenario 1, which I'll skip, and scenario 2, the one set up here, which, by the way, the names of the scenarios are scenario 1, is Assault on Salla, the border battle I mentioned, and the second scenario we're playing here is called the August Campaign. The August Campaign. In scenario 2, take good care of those engineer battalions. So we're talking about this one and this one. So I put the 169th Engineer Battalion, it's actually the 230th Engineer Battalion attached to the 169th Infantry Division. I put it out here on the flank to see if it can basically add combat power to the attack across the river here along that road, the Salla North Road, Salla North Edge Road. The other engineer battalion I put down here, right here. This is the engineer battalion assigned to the 6th Finnish Division. This one's here on the lake because it might attempt a lake crossing and assist these units in crossing the lake and threatening Makola from the south. So take good care of those engineer battalions. They can't take care of themselves. The Finns can make use of a tank battalion, especially in combination with the light infantry's ability to move 1x during the armored movement phase. That's interesting. That's interesting. So linking the light infantry to an armor unit. Alright, so for the Soviets, if you set up right on the border or scenario 2 setup line, Axis player can set up right on the top of you, able to attack on turn 1. Don't give them the opportunity except for the fortifications. These are the fortifications over here that play in scenario 1. Set up 1 hex back. Well, that's interesting. I didn't do that. I'm going to proceed with mine. I didn't set up in the open terrain. I left a gap there. I didn't set up on every hex on the east side of the river, or the lakes. I thought that would be a waste of manpower. Waste of combat power. Interesting. Okay. That way only motorized units can hit you on the first turn. Okay. Rifle divisions each have a tank battalion. So the rifle divisions, yeah. Where are they? It's a cavalry battalion. Does it? Okay, so use the tank battalion assets carefully. You can form a powerful group within each division for counterattacks with bonuses for both combined arms and regimental integrity. First tank division. Okay, this is the first tank division back here. It has actually lost all of its armor battalions. So what remains? We have an infantry regiment. We have an armored reconnaissance battalion up here, and artillery. Basically, that's what's left of the first tank. The first tank division suffers from a serious shortage of infantry. Well, not really in this scenario. In this scenario, yeah. It is fully motorized. Oh, it is motorized. These infantry are motorized. That's actually something important to remember and bear in mind. So you have the motorized wheels underneath the infantry symbol. Okay. Has plentiful artillery support. True. Oh, it also has a range 8 artillery with it. Okay, you must decide its proper use very carefully. Destroy the Waffen SS or blunt the attacks of either of the other Axis divisions. That is why okay, so looking at the Soviet setup, again, you have the 122nd Rifle Division up here. They have the white unit coloring. You have the 104th Rifle Division that has no coloring back here, and the 1st Tank Division back here. Basically, you have to set up the 122nd north of this railroad. So there's a railroad that goes from Salla through Kairala, through Alakurti, east-west. So the railway is a unit boundary, divisional boundary. So the 122nd sets up north of the railroad, 104th south of the railroad. and then you're free to set up the first tank wherever you want. I decided to put the first tank well behind the front lines to decide where to commit it later. Generally, generally for the 122nd Rifle Division up here in the north, I did not try to occupy every hex of the front. Left a gap here, left that gap here, just a gap here on the east side of the lake. There are gaps here, and gaps between here. The artillery support is back here with the headquarters. Basic concept is double up on Kairola and double up on the Salla North Map Edge Road. For the 104th Rifle, it has its assets, divisional assets, back here, and they're doubling up on Kola, and they're spread out. They're more spread out on the southern flank here. All right, that's that for the designer notes. Now for the rules. So I will skip over what is the same with Kastenga, and a lot is the same with Kastenga. Same unit scale here. Sequence of play is identical. So each formation segment will be made up of a reinforcement phase, an armored movement phase. So that'll involve any tank, recon, or motorized, whether motorized infantry, motorized artillery, motorized headquarters, or motorized engineer. Actually, it looks like the engineers are automatically considered motorized. There is not. Is there non-motorized engineers? I'm looking at the counter sheet scan here on the back of the rules booklet. Oh, okay. There is motorized engineers. So, okay. Again, the motorized symbols are quite small, but that's okay. So, for example, there is motorized engineers right there. Okay. So it's not all engineers. If the engineers are indicated as motorized, like in the 1st Tank Division that we just looked at, okay, then they count. But we have non-motorized engineers otherwise. Yeah. So the German engineers, the Finnish engineers are not motorized. The ones here that are on the board right now anyways. Okay. And then the Finnish Light Infantry Battalion moves 1 hex, followed by a combat phase, followed by a movement phase, same as in Kastenga. Zones of control look like they're identical to Kastenga. Movement looks identical. Stacking is identical. A hard 2 units, no exceptions, assessed at the end of the movement phase. Combat looks identical, except, Kastenga did not have, as I recall, didn't have regimental integrity. So combat looks the same, except that you have the possibility for combined arms column shift and a regimental integrity shift. Combat results look the same. Retreats look the same. Special rules. 8.1 is headquarters. It's still the 5 hex range for headquarters to move and attack freely. The German 169th Infantry Division and the Finnish 6th Division have no headquarters units. That's true. We have all these Soviet headquarters here, here, and here, and we have the SS headquarters here, but there are no headquarters units for the 169th or the Finnish 6th. Their units may move and attack freely subject to the game rules. Okay, so there is no command radius rules for those two formations. So yeah, independent units the same as in Kastenga. Well, that's interesting. Okay, so there is no initiative, unlike in Kastenga. So in Kastenga, when units were outside command range, you could roll for initiative for them to move or attack. It looks like in this earlier version of this design in Salla 1941 here, you don't have that. So what happens? If a division headquarters is eliminated, no unit of the division may move or attack for the remainder of the game. They defend normally. That's funny. It doesn't seem to tell you. So what happens if units are outside the 5 hex range? I guess you have to move the headquarters to. Okay, so there was no concept of initiative when Salla here came out. So if the headquarters is eliminated, the division is no longer offensive at all. It sits and defends. That's pretty drastic. And then if units wind up outside of their command range, they're also just sitting until they get back into command range, which looks like can only happen if the headquarters moves. Yeah. Okay. So we play that way. 10. Okay. Motorized artillery may not, and same units may not, artillery units may not move and fire in the same turn. So again, we will use little tile spacers to indicate when artillery units have attacked, fired, so that they cannot move in the same turn. Finnish light infantry, again, Finnish light infantry moves 1 per movement hex instead of 2 through the forest. So the forest looks like the effects are identical to Kastenga. Air support. Oh, air support. During the reinforcement phase of each formation segment, the Axis player rolls 1 die for air support. On a roll of 5, he receives 1 air support point. On a roll of 6, he receives 2. So where Kastenga had no air support, Salla here has a special rules provision for air support. So the Axis may receive none, 1, or 2 air support points. If he is successful, he may not roll again for air support until the next turn. Okay, so you roll during each formation segment until you're successful. Then you don't roll again for that turn until the next turn. The Axis player may decline to roll for air support, hoping to save it for another formation segment. Okay, so you can try to influence roughly when you get, or I should say when you may get air support. Air support points may be allocated to any attack exactly like artillery units conducting ranged combat. Each has a combat factor of 1. Air support points may not be eliminated in combat. Unlike artillery units, air support units may attack any enemy unit on the board, even those not adjacent to friendly units. Any adverse results are treated as no effect. Wow, interesting. Okay, so only the Axis can have air support. Alright, to remind me, I put a little mini die on the turn marker to remind me to roll for the German air support. Crossing major rivers, the Tunsa River, that's this one here, over here. that separates Alakurti from Salla. This is the Tunsa River. Tunsa River, running from north to south past Alakurti, may only be crossed by units tracing a path across the bridge, which is right here at Alakurti, or through the help of a friendly engineer unit. To assist another unit in crossing the Tunsa, an engineer unit from the same formation must be in a hex adjacent to the river. The other unit need not begin in the same side of the river as the engineer unit, but the hexes through which the unit makes the crossing must both lie in the engineer zone of control. The engineer unit may not move in any segment in which it assists a river crossing, but may assist any number of units. The unit performing the crossing pays 2 movement points in addition to any other terrain costs. Fortifications, I'll skip that because the fortifications are kind of behind the front lines now. Game setup. 2 scenarios, almost done here, so ending the game. So the red marker here is on turn 5. There's a total of 10 possible turns in the game. Starting on turn 5, the Soviet player rolls a die, and on a roll of 6 at the end of turn 5, game ends immediately. So then each turn, that number goes down by 1, so it's 5 at the end of turn 6, 4 at the end of turn 7, etc., which means that at the end of turn 10, game will automatically end if it reaches that point. So basically, from turn 5 on until turn 10, you have variable game ending, similar to Kastenga. Similar to Kastenga, each side will get points for destruction of enemy units, and as well, I've marked the geographical objectives here. Salla is worth victory points to the Soviet player if he basically retakes it. Kairala and Makola are worth victory points to the Soviet player. And Vuorajärvi down here, and Alakurti. So yes, the Soviet player earns victory points for Alakurti, V-Town down here, Kairala, Makola, and Salla if he retakes it. The Axis player earns victory points in addition to destroying enemy units for Kairala and Makola and Alakurti. So for the Axis, it's these 3. Driving on Alakurti, Soviets can get points for occupying all of the indicated urban areas, built-up areas. All right, one more thing to go over. There's an optional rule called SS efficiency. I'm going to read it in its entirety, and we will play with it. SS efficiency. Nazi party leaders expected of often SS formations to perform as the military's elite. The party activist of SS Nord, led by officers whose training, quote-unquote, consisted of a short seminar, got their weapons training by pointing their rifles out the windows of their troop trains and blazing away at the Finnish forests during their deployment to the Salla front. In battle, they performed terribly, and the 36th Corps staff wished to send them into a rear area camp for some real training before committing them to action again. Adolf Hitler intervened, personally ordering the division into action. Therefore, during each formation segment in which SS Nord is activated, the division must make at least one attack on a Soviet unit as long as units other than the headquarters and artillery remain in play. So until the division is whittled down to the headquarters and or artillery battalions, no, that's not the right way to say it. As long as the SS division has a single non-headquarters and non-artillery unit, it must make at least one attack on a Soviet unit. Okay. I predict that is going to be pretty drastic for the SS division. That could be very drastic. That might mean that the SS division here in the center might be forced to attack in such a way that it's basically going to waste itself away. How ironic that they're going to be forced to attack and they're right in the center opposite Kairola. Alright, so that is Salla 1941, a fight to the finish. We looked at the rules that are distinct from Kastanga, talked about the initial deployment here. So I'm going to take, so this is first tank back here, take its formation chit, put in the cup, 122nd Rifle Division, 104th Rifle Division, 169th German Infantry Division, the German SS Nord Division, and the Finnish 6th Division. 6 formation markers, 3 per side, in the cup, ready to start turn 1. That's about it. Until next time.